So today marks the first day that truckers are saying that they're going to stop taking any loads into New York City. And how big of an impact will this have over the coming hours and coming days? It's a 7-day strike, supposedly. But many truckers across the United States, most of those have no connection to New York City whatsoever, are calling for this strike. Now, one of the things that I think is so very important here is whether this has any impact whatsoever on New York City itself. The idea is starting to scare people, and it's inspiring people. And this is one of the things that we need to be latching onto, is that as we face resistance from our government to our basic freedoms and loyalties, we need to find these tools and methods to push back on what is happening to us. And because of that, we're going to be talking about that. And of course, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump actually coming out and endorsing the protest, because this is the way things need to start moving. We need to start pushing back on the things that are happening in our country and in our world. And we need to be finding creative ways that are provocative yet peaceful, because, and I can't underscore this enough, it is important how we position things. And if we can position ourselves as not the aggressors and position ourselves politically as the ones being oppressed, that will really resonate with a lot of people that really aren't paying attention or who are on the fence. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. I am not a trucker, and I do not drive to New York City. But I'll join the protest too. And so I say that a little bit cynically just because a lot of the people jumping on TikTok, even the guy that actually was the original TikTok or Twitter person that talked about this, he's a trucker in Chicago. So he probably doesn't take loads to New York City anyway, right? So we have people that are protesting that aren't actually doing anything, right? And that's not to say that there aren't any. The people that are going to make a big difference in this protest are going to be the people that actually pass up on contracts, independent truckers who see a bid for hauling a load to New York City and they refuse to do so. This is probably going to be a lot more long-haul truckers, because they're going to be the ones who are going to be like, you know, I'm sitting in Nashville and I could take this load up to New York City for this rate, or I could take a load out to, you know, somewhere else. And then them choosing to not do that. And by doing that, it's going to start creating increased demand for people to take loads to New York City, which will cost more and more money and will impact people on the receiving end of that in New York City. But these type of protests are interesting because it's a thought experiment. What if all the truckers stop taking stuff to, and you can fill in the blank with whatever city it is. And if we do that, I mean, you can't really be arrested for not doing something, right? And if we choose to not engage in economic activity with a certain city or a certain area, well, that could be just downright interesting, couldn't it? What if people who have stores, we're already seeing this in a lot of urban areas. Stores are being closed right and left because of all the rampant thefts. And do you really want to do business in these cities in the first place? If I was a trucker, I think I would have serious concerns about driving into a city, an urban area, where I could be prosecuted for stuff I post on Twitter or stuff I post online, right? Just as personally, I am afraid to go to China. I'm afraid to go to Russia because of things I've posted, and just the general lack of freedom in those places. I have more and more concern going to places like New York City, because while they don't have the same tyrannical governments that China and Russia have, it's moving that direction, isn't it? The political prosecution of people that they don't like that say things that they don't like, that have political opinions that they don't like. Speaking of political opinions they don't like, let's hear what Donald Trump has to say. On his Truth Social, he reposted the original call from the Chicago trucker who, and I don't repost that here because let's just say it's harsh language in there. And if you've been on this channel at all, you know that I don't get into that type of language, and I don't want that to be on this channel at all. So I didn't repost it on the Twitter account either. But Donald Trump did repost the video, and he said that truckers who are refusing or participating in the boycott are great patriots on the side of freedom. So not only did he spread the message of the video, but then he also clearly endorsed the protest at a fundamental level. So it's supposed to take place for 7 days. Will we see any real impact on the ground in New York City? I don't know. But what we're seeing is people are getting excited about the idea of pushing back. And as we get these ideas, it's going to give more people more ideas, right? And eventually, as people feel the pain more and more of what is happening to them, the more people feel threatened and energized to do something, they will find methods, they will find ways of acting out, whether it's blocking roads going in. Maybe truckers, by and large, will still carry loads in, but what happens if the roads get jammed up even more than they do normally? Then can loads even get into the city? If some people have the opportunity to start making decisions at a high level, we've already seen some shipping companies that have just rejected all loads to New York City completely. We've seen multiple shipping companies who aren't leaving it up to the truckers whether to go or not. They're just not giving them the loads. And wherever you see in business this type of grassroots boycott, this is what happened to Bud Light, right? Now, Bud Light was something that it was relatively frictionless for people to just buy a different beer or not buy beer that week at all, right? But it was very easy for a lot of people to make a shift in order to punish this brand. And not only that, but there was also this social component that, if you're seen with that brand, it kind of tarnishes your brand as a person, right? And so, will we see that same type of a behavior here? We have people who are going to have to pass up on thousands and thousands of dollars, money that they depend on to keep their trucks going, to keep fuel in their trucks, to pay insurance, all this kind of stuff like that. It's going to be a lot higher cost for a lot fewer people to do a boycott against New York City. But it will be very interesting in this coming week to see how that plays out. But one of the things that's super interesting is not only are people inspired by this and thinking, you can see the wheels turning in people's minds, like, how do we do this elsewhere? How and where else can we do this in an organized fashion? But also we're seeing how threatened certain people are out there. It's interesting to go through the Twitter feed and see the angry outbursts by New Yorkers mocking the idea. And it's not like, oh, that's a stupid idea. It's like you can see how threatened they are. They don't like the idea that people are suggesting that they could be cut off from resources. There's a lot of people who live in New York City, and they don't grow food in New York City. All the food to those restaurants, all the food to those grocery stores and all that kind of stuff like that has to come in from the outside. And if you just find a few people that have the power to throw some monkey wrenches into the supply chain, it may not be a few truckers that cause the problems. It may be a few people who organize loads, who just throw some monkey wrenches into the system to grind things to a halt. What happens as this moves forward if people step up and start doing other things? We've seen protests on the other side of the aisle, right? That gluing their hands to roads. Now, I don't think we're going to be seeing conservatives gluing their hands to roads. But you know, what happens when vehicles break down in the middle of a lane, you know, and they get stuck there, and maybe they snarl traffic? Or what happens when people just decide to start going slower than what they need to be going on roads? What happens if people start parking in such a way to box in trucks? Or, now, I'm not suggesting any of those things. I'm just saying when people are upset, they will start finding creative ways to act out. What happens when someone decides to not service a truck because they know that truck is going to be used in taking supplies to New York City? What happens if an insurance company decides, you know what, we're just not going to insure vehicles in New York City anymore? Now, we see New York City doing all sorts of crazy stuff, not just going after their political opponents, but just in December, you may not have heard this, because why would you unless you actually live in New York City? They decided that they're going to pass a congestion fee, $15 per vehicle per day, for any vehicles that go south of 60th Street in New York City. They're estimating that this is going to raise $1 billion per year off of drivers. So, you know, just a small tax that's just going to make it so that nobody can actually drive in New York City. It's like they don't want people going to New York City. What they're hoping that this is going to raise tons and tons of money, but that it's also going to force people to take public transportation. Get on those dangerous subways where people are being stabbed and attacked, and where there's rats running around, causing bubonic plague and all sorts of other medieval diseases. What will it look like when people start pushing back? You can pop down the comments down below and let us know some of the thoughts that you have of how we can push back. Are there ways that we as ordinary Americans can push back on New York City right now? I've thought about it, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Are there any ways that we as ordinary Americans this week can push back on New York City in any ways? I don't buy stuff from New York City, generally speaking, but maybe there's some ways that we can also join in on this protest. If there are, share those ideas. And we need to be thinking and becoming more creative, but we want to do things that don't show us as the aggressors, but will provoke our opposition to have to do something drastic. What do you do if you're a city and no supplies are coming in? You have to activate the National Guard to drive trucks, or you have to pass laws that mandate truckers have to bring stuff into the city, or you have to do something extreme, and it provokes a response and provokes an action that will look kind of tyrannical. To activate military units in order to move produce will sound extreme to anyone who's not paying attention. And it will really point back to the people and why are the truckers deciding to do this in the first place? Well, let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. This is a community and we share information, and we have reports that you guys pass information along, but we also need to start thinking about generating ideas and generating information if we were to truly be impactful in our societies here in the United States and in the countries that you come from. How do we connect with people? How do we pass along good ideas? How do we organize in a way that can really put a dent into a company or a brand, or even a city? All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.